So this is what if Naruko was a um, uh, kitsune. Why did that word escape me? Don't know, but it just did. And I just saw a comment from one of you guys about what about the twin swords, and I will get to that right this second, but it's on to the Sasuke retrieval arc. So Sasuke was stuck at the village while Naruto was. This is during the training trip. Naruto was out on a training trip with Jiraiya, and they were wondering where is Sasuke, because he hasn't shown up to any of the meetings for the team or any of the other stuff. And they go to the Uchiha compound, which he normally spends most of his time when Naruto isn't in the village, and he's stuck alone instead of at Kakashi's place, because he was lonely and he wanted to train while she was gone. So they go to the Uchiha compound and they find it empty. But Kakashi was called, and Kakashi used his Sharingan and found traces of chakra. And on one of the training grounds of the Uchiha compound, he finds a struggle. There's burnt grass, there's kunais, there's explosive tags that haven't been blown up yet. And he immediately reports this to the Hokage, and the Hokage, Minato, says that he's signing an emergency mission to find the tuning level ninja of Team 7, a tuning level ninja, from being abducted. And Naruko, Sakura, and Sasuke were all branded by Orochimaru, and Sakura, since she was learning to be a medic ninja, found a way to completely nullify the pain, nullify the effects with medic ninjutsu. Tsunade, who is currently out at the moment, couldn't help Sasuke with the injuries that he sustained during the exams, but because he had like a few broken bones, so she couldn't constantly treat him like is required. But he went to the hospital, and they said that their medical ninjutsu can't affect him because of the curse mark. Only the Slug Princess can, Lady Tsunade. And he's like, oh god, so this is gonna hurt for a while. So he took training easy, but he still was training. And this is a day before Kakashi found the Uchiha hideout, or Uchiha compound, in the state it's in. And Sasuke is currently reading a scroll, and his Sharingan blazes to life with a 30 Tomoe and yells, "Who is there?" And the person walks out and says, "I'm here to pick you up for your Lord Orochimaru." And he goes, "I'm not going with that asshole of a Sanin and pedophile, because he hurt my friends and my loved ones." And this is a rain ninja a Kiri ninja, because Orochimaru said that he will personally return the swords that Konoha has if they help him with securing Sasuke Uchiha. And the swords that Konoha had were reported stolen from Konoha the night of Sasuke's disappearance. So the Kiri ninja abducts Sasuke after a fierce battle. The ninja was an S rank ninja, a Kage level shinobi, and Sasuke was not prepared for a Kage level shinobi. Jonin maybe, not Kage. And he was taken to Orochimaru. And Naruko, when she got back, she found out that Orochimaru has stolen Sasuke, or abducted Sasuke, and she is pissed off. And she had to be held back by both the QB and everybody else, including her father and mother. Her mother is just called Kushina right now, because Naruko still doesn't believe that, or doesn't think of her as her mother yet. Kushina has been growing on Naruko, and she still thinks of Minato more as an uncle than her actual father. And she calls Lady Tsunade Granny, and Hiruzen Grandpa, or Old Man. And she still calls Kakashi Father, or Dad. She's been getting into the habit of calling the fourth Hokage Father. And so the night before they leave to go to one of Orochimaru's bases to basically clear it out of what's there, Naruko cries herself to sleep. And she doesn't know why, she just started crying. And since she lived in the Senju compound at this point, because Kushina Senju, anybody? Nobody? If anybody reads Legacy, write down in the comments, please. But Kushina Senju and Naruko Uzumaki, she cried herself to sleep, and Kushina, who's basically sleeping next door because of how many rooms that the Senju compound has, she heard the entire episode of crying. And Kushina, knowing that Jinchurikis, when they cry and are frustrated, they need to be left alone for a little bit to cool down. Then once they're cool, then you can talk about it. So in the morning, Kushina wakes up early and makes breakfast. And since she's an Edo Tensei, she doesn't eat. And Naruko wakes up a little later than she normally does, and her face is beet red from crying so much. And Kushina, seeing that Naruko has calmed down completely, she asks Naruko what's wrong, and Naruko goes, I don't know. It just hurts that Sasuke's not here. And Kushina, knowing the feeling, puts it in the back of her mind to tell her when they're at the base to tell Naruko very calmly and softly to think about what Sasuke is to her. And that's when they're back. And Tsunade, who taught Naruko over the 3 years medical ninjutsu, so Naruko has now 6 tails. Well, no, not 6 tails. She has 7 tails. So she needs lightning and genjutsu mastery. Yeah, lightning and genjutsus. She needs to master lightning and genjutsu. So she, that day, is sent out on a basically run. So she has 4 tails showing, and they're all the color blue. And her ears are the color blue too. Her hair changed color to blue too, so everybody thinks that this is a new person, but when they see the tails and ears, they think of it's Naruko. So she went out on her morning exercise before they left to go to the bridge and get the information, because they've already found out via Kisame that Kabuto is a spy, and he's meeting up with one of the people he informs with here. So they get to the bridge, and Kabuto and Orochimaru show up, and they currently have Kakashi, Naruko, Sakura, and Yamato. And Yamato because, yeah, when Naruko sees Orochimaru, her fangs start to grow, her eyes start to dilate, and all of her tails show, and Yamato immediately uses a wood prison to dumb down how much chakra she was leaking, because she's leaking a lot of chakra. And Orochimaru, not feeling the chakra, walks up to the person who Kabuto was supposed to inform and stabs him through the chest. And I'm saying that the guy that Kabuto was supposed to inform was one of the Akatsuki members. And it was the puppet dude. Sasori of the Red Sand. That's his name. And Sasori, who was in puppet form, just laughs it off and tells Orochimaru that he's a freaking fool to think that you could kill him with a stupid sword through the gut. And Orochimaru going, I know. I'm just breaking your first puppet so you would come out with your real puppet. And Sasori goes, very good. You remember. And Sasori leaves his original puppet and leaves his first puppet and goes into his original puppet form and starts fighting with Orochimaru. And Naruko, seeing that Orochimaru is losing, thinks, oh crap, I need to stop him and take Orochimaru back to the leaf so he can find out where Sasuke is. She goes full berserk, releases the entire Nine Tails chakra. And the thing when she releases the Nine Tails is it covers the tails that are currently showing and then grows to the amount that she's missing. So she immediately henges into a Nine Tails form, so the Nine Tails doesn't have to use so much chakra to grow a form. And she roars, breaking the cage, and she completely obliterates Sasori with a Bijuu bomb. And since Orochimaru felt the chakra building up to launch a Bijuu bomb, was like, oh crap, and he summoned the Hirashiman gates. And he was so hurt after the Hirashiman gates was destroyed. Sasori is completely obliterated. He's dead. He's gone. And Orochimaru is wondering what the hell just happened, and then he looks and he sees a mini Kyuubi. And he goes, oh, Naruko! Crap. And he tries to run with his shedding of the skin and reverse summoning jutsu, but Naruko sends a summon of her own. Since the Jinchurikis can summon the Kyuubi, Naruko, since she has 2 times the chakra of a Kyuubi right this second, she summons toads. Because yes, she's still going to get the toad contract, but the toads aren't going to be as loyal as if she was a normal human. Because she can't summon kitsunes like a human could for the fox contract. She can only summon the Kyuubi from her seal. And so the toads show up and say, what is it now? In somewhat of a tone. And she goes, "This is one of the only times I'm summoning you. We need to capture him and not let him escape." And she said this while growling. And they're like, "Okay, fine." And it was Gamabunta, uh, the two toads that Naruto bonded with, the ungraceful toad, I forget his name, and the weird girly toad that Jiraiya had Naruto to learn with. So all four of them are currently just stalling Orochimaru from activating the summoning jutsu. Every time he starts doing hand signs, they make him run or do a different jutsu. And an hour later, Naruko, who after releasing her henge, after an hour of her doing hand signs, because this is a very difficult and powerful technique, she uses all the Kyuubi chakra she had left to seal Orochimaru in a scroll. And this scroll is very special. And it's a communication scroll. The difference between a normal sealing scroll is you seal them in, time stops for them. It's a space and time technique. But this one, time flows for them, for their mind at least, and you can communicate with the mind. And it can't defy whoever sealed it. So she had this giant scroll, and it only holds one person. And she closes the scroll and then walks over to everybody else and says, "I'm done being pissed off and I want to get Sasuke back." And Sakura, seeing how emotional Naruko is when she's talking about Sasuke, goes, "Okay, I better back off or she's going to kill me." Because Kushina talked to Sakura before they left, saying, "If you talk about Sasuke, talk about going out with him, be ready to fight Naruko because she subconsciously is in love with Sasuke. And you know how powerful she is." And Sakura goes, "Yeah." So when she saw that display, she's like, "Oh crap, I better not do that." So she gives up on her dreams of going out with Sasuke, and instead changes who she's looking at. I'm going to put two useless characters together. And when she gets back to the Leaf, Kiba is there to greet them and says "Job well done." Says, "Let me take you guys out for some food." And Sakura obliges. And Naruko says, "I can't. I'm going to the Hokage to report stuff." And she's still a little mad at Orochimaru. So when she gets to the Hokage and Sakura is on her date with Kiba, because Hinata is looking at someone else and Kiba is looking at Naruko and Sakura as the best looking people in the class. So Kiba is looking at Sakura and asking how the mission went, and Sakura was telling him how she's giving up on Sasuke because Naruko is in love with Sasuke, and how she got pissed off when Orochimaru was about to kill the only lead that they had, to the Akatsuki, and she basically briefs Kiba on the A rank mission they just went on. And back with Naruto, she's currently storming into the Hokage's office, and the receptionist say, "You can't go in there yet. He's in a meeting." And she goes, "I don't care. I have something important to tell him." And the receptionist, who is apprehensive of talking with Naruto, but sees that Naruto is thoroughly pissed off and knows that not to deal with a pissed off Jinchuriki, because this receptionist is from Kushina's class and knows how pissed off Kushina got at some comments and how powerful she was, knows to not mess with her. And Kushina is currently talking with Minato about Naruto and her love life, and Kushina says she loves Sasuke and she doesn't even know that. Minato goes, I know. I've been a terrible father to her and I need to do better. I just need to first get into contact with her more often. And Kushina goes, yeah, you do. And Naruto, hearing her name, stopped and slowed down and was listening in and heard that last part of the conversation. So she opens the door and says, I got the package. And Minato, not expecting Naruto, who was like, hi, what do you mean you got the package? And Naruto says, I made my own funjutsu and sealed Orochimaru away in this scroll. And she puts the scroll on the ground. And it's the same size as the jutsu scrolls for the Hokage. The jutsu scroll for the Hokage. The scroll of sealing. That's what it's called. And Minato is like, wait, what? And Naruto says, yeah, I can basically summon a vestige of Orochimaru to tell us whatever is in his mind and have him think and do stuff for the village. So she unrolled the scroll and was super speed on hand signs and took like 5 minutes to go through all the hand signs, and she placed it down, and all that showed up was a what was it? A vestige, a vestige of Orochimaru. And he's like, wait, where did I go? Where am I? And Naruto goes, where is Sasuke? As fast as possible. And Orochimaru says, I need a map to show you. And he's like, wait, what? And he's confused on why he's telling Naruto all this. And Naruto gets a map of the entire countries. And Orochimaru says, I need a map of the fire country. And Naruto gets a map from the library really quickly by swinging there and back with a map of fire country. And Orochimaru is currently cursing himself for answering all the questions. And Naruto says one last time, where is he? And Orochimaru points out the base that Sasuke is being held at, and says it's going to be impossible to get in because it's sealed off from the surface with multiple seals, and my highest level of ninjas are currently guarding Sasuke because of my need for his body and his eyes. And he's telling them all this sensitive information. And when Naruto says, okay, I release you from my control and shall put you under the fourth Hokage's control. And she looks at her father and says, I need a little bit of your blood. So she puts Orochimaru under his control, and Orochimaru now answers all the questions that the fourth Hokage has for him. And Naruto took off. She didn't even wait for a team. She just took off. And she still has Samehada with her. And while Naruko is on this mission, and Orochimaru, she's on this mission and she finds the main base of Orochimaru, breaks in, finds Sasuke, and he's currently knocked out, so she seals him in a stasis scroll. And she's been killing all of Orochimaru's henchmen, and what's his name? The Bone Dude. He attacks Naruko, and Naruko uses Samehada and completely annihilates the Bone Dude. Completely annihilates the Bone Dude, and next thing that happens is the Sound 4 show up, and they see that the Bone Guy's defeated, and they're like, oh crap, she's super strong, we can't fight her, and they try to run away, and Naruko is on a revenge path for all the Orochimaru henchmen, and the Sound 4 are leading her, or accidentally leading her to the place where all the swords are, all the swords of the mist, and Naruko sees this and pulls out a storage scroll after killing all the Sound 4. She pulls out a storage scroll and seals all of them except for Samehada. So the only ones that have not been stolen by Orochimaru were the Executioner Blade and Samehada. Kubikiri Bocho, and Samehada. And Naruko uses one of the sound birds from the Sound Village and puts a Konoha stamp on it, on the letter, saying, and it went to Kiri, and Kiri replies to Konoha saying, we will send an ambassador to pick up the swords. And Minato is questioning what this is from, and at this time Naruko is finally walking back, and she has 3 scrolls in a little bag, and no, not 3 scrolls. She has 4 scrolls. No, not 4, because 7 swordsmen of mist. 6 scrolls. She has 6 scrolls. One's a blue, and then the rest are red. And she walks to the gate, and she pulls out the stasis scroll and says to the Anbu, take the rest of these scrolls to the Hokage and tell him that the message from Kiri is replying from mine. It's a reply from mine. And they go, yes ma'am, because there was at least one Anbu always supposed to report to the Hokage if anything is needed from Naruko, because she is the daughter of the 4th. So the 4th requires at least one Anbu to be watching her in the village at all times. So she walks back to the Uchiha compound and unseals the scroll, and Sasuke is plopped onto his bed, and she curls up with him, and she hinges into a fox and curls up with him, and has a note connected to her neck saying, I was worried about you, and the fox is me, without any signature. And she's currently in fox form, laying on top of him. An hour later, she's passed out on top of Sasuke, and Sasuke wakes up and feels this heavy weight on him. and doesn't feel any cold around him. Instead, he feels really warm. He lifts his head up to see what the weight is and sees that it's a little fox with what looks like a collar and a note attached to it. So he opens up the note, and it says, "I was worried about you, and the fox is me." And he looks at the fox again and sees that it has more than one tail. And he starts blushing, and he waits for Naruko to wake up. And after he starts petting her, Naruko wakes up and feels she's getting petted and acts like she's still asleep. And Sasuke falls asleep again, and Naruko was testing Sasuke, and because she was figuring out that she loved him on the missions and the runaway from Konoha to fetch Sasuke self-mission, and so she transforms from her henge and goes into her human form and cuddles with Sasuke. And the next 2 days they both sleep, and when Sasuke and her finally wake up from she had a little bit of chakra exhaustion, and Sasuke was injured and he finally healed. He looked at her and she looked at him, and the one thing that she did was she immediately jumped up and kissed him. And he was slightly shocked and kissed back, and a minute later the kiss was broken, and she asks, "What do you feel about me?" And before he can even answer, she goes, "Before you answer, I I have feelings for you." And she turns a little bit red, and Sasuke is a little shocked and says, "I have feelings for you too." And they have a nice moment, and then an Anbu knocks on the door of the Uchiha compound, and Sasuke gets up in his old clothes that he needs to change and opens the door and says, "Yes." And the Anbu, get sensing that they are awake because it was a sensor, says that the fourth has requested your appearance in the office and would like to talk with you and Naruko. And Sasuke goes, "Okay." And Sasuke immediately goes to the bathroom to wash up because he's been trapped in a cell for a good few months. And and when they get to the Hokage's office, Sasuke is greeted by the Hokage, and the Hokage says, "Welcome back," and then looks at Naruko and says, "You're on suspension for 2 days from when you got back." And it took her a minute to realize that she's off suspension again. And he goes, "That was stupid going without backup." And she goes, "I know, I was so mad." And she sees the scroll and she goes, "So, was it helpful?" And he goes, "Very." And then there was a knock at the door, and the receptionist says, "Lord Forth, you have visitors from Kiri?" And he goes, "Perfect timing." And he looks at Naruko. "You give me only headaches nowadays." And she smiles and goes, "I know." And the fourth Hokage is waiting for the Kira ninja to get it in, and the Kira ninja, who was the same one that abducted Sasuke, walks in and says, "How do you do, Lord Forth?" And he sees that it's Sasuke Uchiha that's standing in the room, and he completely ignores it, and Sasuke is shaking with shaking with anger, saying, You can't just ignore me. You freaking abducted me. And Naruko, hearing that, starts getting mad, and Minato says, "That's why I called you here. You went rogue on orders of the Mizukage to fetch the swords from us and Orochimaru. But what you really did is just give him the swords and not actually take them back to the village. So in compensation for you abducting one of our ninjas, you have been given to us as a bargaining chip for peace from the new Mizukage." And he, knowing that he's now a rogue ninja, and the Mizukage says that when he arrives again, he will be sent on a mission to the Leaf to pick up the swords. And since he was sent on the mission, he's like, crap. And then the fourth Hokage, seeing that Naruko is not shaking with anger, and that she's just giving him a death stare at this point, he gives a hand signal, and the Anbu come into the room and apprehend the ninja. The next day, Naruko is summoned to the Hokage's office at a strange hour of the day, and she walks into the Hokage's office and says, "Yes, Lord Forth?" And she sees a older woman with brown hair and a blue dress on and a hat on, and that says Mizukage, or kanji for the Mizukage. And she respectfully bows and is Lady Mizukage, and May Terumi goes, "No need to be formal. I am here on a peace treaty because I heard from Zabuza Momochi, the missing nin that I met at this village. And Zabuza is currently in the room with a Konoha headband still on and the Kubikiri Bocho. And May says, I heard that you were the one who saved Zabuza, or tried to save Zabuza, and he accepted the invitation." And she talks about all the things that Naruko has done for the village of the Kiri village. And then May Terumi says, "I wish to extend a hand of gratitude to you, and we wish to make you a sword. A personalized sword that will only be wielded by the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki." And May is currently extending her hands for a handshake from Naruko, and Naruko says, "I would love a sword that can only be wielded by a Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, but you're going to have to take something from me first." And May goes, "What?" And Naruko pulls off Samehada from her back, which Samehada found a way to shrink to the size of a katana when it's not being used, so it looks like a normal katana, not a giant-ass sword. But when Naruko pulled it off her back, it turned into a giant-ass sword, and she let it hit the ground and said, "You're going to have to take this from me first, because every time I try dropping it, I can't drop it." And May says it's the bond between Samehada and its user. It's a curse and a blessing too. As long as Samehada has eaten a little bit of chakra, you can survive any injury. And she explains how Samehada works, and then she says, for example, each sword has a different use, and that sword, the twin sword that you used, has forever been changed to have longer handles. And Naruko goes, "Oh yeah, when I used 2 executioner blades." And May goes, "Wait, what?" And Zabuza starts laughing and goes, yeah, you know how I told you that the twin blades, I don't know the name of him, but he says, you remember how I told you the twin blades changed into big swords and now have longer handles? Zabuza pulls out the twin blade scroll and unseals it and shows the Kubikiri Bocho handle on both of the handles for the twin blades. And says, they have forever been changed into the Kubikiri Bocho handles. I don't know if it can be reversed. Don't know if it can even be scratched now. I know it can be broken because all the swords can, except for Samihara, and it looks at the shark-like sword and he goes, yeah, I do not like that sword. And Mei goes, this just makes everything worse. But anyway, she turns to the Hokage and says, I wish to borrow Naruko Uzumaki for 1 week so we can make her sword in Kiri, and then she shall come back with a new set of kunai for you and the sword. And the Hokage goes, we will accept the sword if she does, but we cannot accept the kunai. And Mei goes, I understand, and the sword shall be a weapon to help also control the Kyuubi, and the Kyuubi going, no, it won't. It won't have even anywhere close to being able to control her in his mind, and he accidentally said won't be able to control her in Naruko's mind to escape, and Naruko's like, I need to talk to him later. So Naruko takes a trip to Kiri and finds, on the way to Kiri, Jiraiya peeping on a hot spring. And she sees Jiraiya, and Mei was about to walk into the hot spring and says, Mei, give me a minute. And Naruko henges into a very grotesque form. And this is a henge, so it's a very grotesque looking creature that's supposed to resemble somewhat of a lady. And she walks in front of Jiraiya and says, really? In the Naruko voice, she says, really? And Jiraiya, remembering where that voice is from, and seeing this thing in front of him, is like, oh crap. And he tries to Shunshuin away, but Naruko drops the henge, and she currently has a very skimpy outfit for ninja clothes on, and is beating the daylights out of Jiraiya with Tsunade level strength. And Jiraiya, who's broken on the ground, is crying anime tears because of his research got stopped, and Jiraiya finally finds enough strength and concentration to Shunshuin away from Naruko, and Naruko and Mei enjoy the hot springs. A week later, Naruko is currently walking back to the Leaf Village, and she gets attacked by something. And since Yagura was defeated during the Bloodline Purge War, the Sanbi, I think it's Sanbi. Yeah, the Sanbi, the Three Tails, was released into the wild, and Naruko, being a big threat to any Bijuu, the Sanbi was defending itself because it thought it was going to be attacked by Naruko, and knew if that Naruko got the first attack, it was dead. So it attacked Naruko, and Naruko saw the Bijuu bomb coming and stopped it with one hand. She used her chakra control and made a basically wind force field and stopped it with one hand. And the Sanbi asks, "What the hell are you?" And Naruko goes, "I am Naruko Uzumaki, the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi." And Sanbi looks at her and asks, "Okay, then summon Kurama." And Naruko, knowing exactly who Kurama is, because Kurama trusted her with his name, says, "Okay, I will summon him in a second. Give me a second." And she puts down Samehara and her new blade. I will find you a picture of her new blade in a minute. And Kurama gets summoned, and he's in little chibi form of Kurama, and Sanbi sees this and shrinks down with her abilities and starts talking with Kurama, and the Sanbi says the last user was the last of her clan, and she needs a new. The last Chichiriki was the last of her clan, and she needs a new heir to receive some of her bloodline, so they can wield her. And Naruko says, "I have a proposition for you. I will send a letter to the Kiri village, and if you are able to be a guardian instead of a weapon, because the Sanbi has been transferred down to multiple people in the bloodline before Kurama, because Kurama has been lazy and just wanted to sleep 90% of his life. So he didn't transfer down the abilities, and no one was skilled enough to even withstand his chakra if he transferred it down." And the Sanbi says, "In this form I am immortal, so I shall be the guardian of the Kiri village." And so Naruko summoned a toad and told I think it's Fukasaku? No, not Fukasaku. Told the old toad to deliver a message to the Kiri village, and she puts a letter on his back, and he goes, "I will. Just be safe." And he reverse summons himself, and the Sanbi starts to swim towards Kiri. And Naruko says bye to the Sanbi and says, "Oh wait, hold on." And Naruko says, "Fist bump." And the Sanbi, not understanding, pulls her paw or hoof or whatever it's called out of the water, and Naruko punches it really softly and transfers some chakra into the Sanbi, and the Sanbi gets basically a high off of it. But the Sanbi transfers some chakra into Naruko, and Naruko uses it to communicate with the Sanbi mentally. And the Sanbi is now in touch with Shukaku and Kurama. So I'm gonna pull up the sword now for Naruko, the one that Naruko gets. Give me a minute. So when she gets back to the village, she has two swords on her back. She has this one, which is currently covered in bandages, like Samehara, and she has Samehara. And Zabuza appears behind her and with Kubikiri Bocho on his back and says, "So, how's your new sword work?" And she goes, "Give me a minute and I'll tell you how." And she's like, 3, 2, 1. And an Anbu appears in front of her. "You're requested in the Hokage's office immediately." And she goes to the Hokage's office and goes, "Father, I'm guessing you understand my situation with the Sanbi?" And he puts his head down and goes, "Yeah, that makes sense. And Naruko says it's either that or you have to put the Sanbi in a host that it doesn't want, that it will most likely kill because it's not compatible. So this is a form of release for the Sanbi and the rest of the Bijuu if we have them become guardians instead of prisoners. And the and Minato says that makes sense, but I have one condition. You must visit the Sanbi, or at least try to talk with the Sanbi, every month. And she goes, that's easy. I just go into my mindscape and talk with Shukaku, Gara, and Sanbi and the old Yagura. And he looks at Naruko like she's crazy, and she says, I have the ability to talk with all the Bijuu if I collect all of their chakra, a sample of all their chakra. And he's like, oh God, this can be difficult. And he goes, okay, I'll try to help you. I don't think I'll be able to get you very many introductions with Bijuus. And she goes, that's fine. I just need to talk to Yugito of Kumo, B of Kumo, Fu of the Waterfall Village, and if I remember correctly, there's a few more. And Minato pales at the idea of her going to the last few, and he goes, those are all you need for right now. And she goes, okay. So she goes to Kumo with a escort, and since there's a peace treaty, the escort is the one that is the ambassador and is the occasional person to go to the Leaf Village and talk with them for their advice on things and situations. So they're currently going to Kumo, and when Naruko arrives at Kumo, she flares her Nine-Tails chakra just a tiny bit to where only the Bijuu could sense it. And B, fearing that the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki is losing control, arrives in an instant, and she goes, hello! And he starts to ask what's wrong and is there anything he can do to help. And she goes, there's nothing wrong, and yeah, fist bump. And she puts out her fist, and B's like, okay. And he's like, I was worried, but sure. And he fist bumps energetically, and they get sent into the mindscape. They talk for a while, but it only lasts like a few seconds in reality. And Yugito, feeling the Nine-Tails chakra and a little bit of B's chakra, is like, the hell is going on? And appears, and Naruko sees Yugito and is like, fist bump, because she senses the Two Tails and Yugito, and fist bump. A few seconds later, they're back in in reality, and she goes, okay, my job is done here. And she looks at the ambassador and says, farewell. Thanks for showing me the way. And she darts off. And the ambassador looks down and goes, I was not done with her. And B's like, she's energetic. And Yugito goes, yeah, she was. And the ambassador says that is Naruko Uzumaki, the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki of the Hidden Leaf. And Yu goes, we know, we met the QB, and the ambassador paled, saying, you met the QB? We go, yeah, we also Jinchurikis. And he goes, oh, makes sense now. Well, off to the peace treaties, and he walks to Raikage's office, and talks about peace and hippies and stuff. I was joking. They talk about peace and what they can do for each other's village. And then the ambassador says to the Raikage, I have a special message from the Hokage about something, and I don't know what it's for. He just said, don't open it or read it. And he hands it to the Raikage, and the Raikage reads it and sees that it's a request to have one of their masters in normal lightning jutsus to lightning chakra, and a master of lightning jutsus to teach Naruko, when she gets back, how to easily control lightning chakra. And the Raikage goes, I'll do him one better. He calls in Darui, the wielder of the Black Lightning, and says, we will have the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, and after the war we had a skirmish, you remember that? And he goes, yeah, at the tuning exams. And the Raikage says the Hokage was trusting us in the tuning exams, and I would like to repay the favor. I would like to teach his daughter. And Darui says, wait, he has a daughter? And he goes, yeah, the Nine Tails Jinchuriki is Minato's daughter. And Minato and the Raikage treat each other like siblings because they have a brotherly bond after the invasion. So Naruko is currently running to the waterfall village and using her sense of smell to smell out the mildew and water and things that normally go with water, and the sense of disgust that she has near bugs. And then she uses her senses when she gets close enough to find Fu. And Fu is currently out watching a waterfall and looking at bugs and studying them because she's a bug geek like Shino is. And Naruko walks up on Fu, and the bugs start attacking Naruko. And Naruko uses her water jutsus to repel the bugs slightly without hurting them. And Fu sees that and is like, who are you and what are you doing here? And Naruko says, I am the Nine Tails Jinchuriki and I would like a fist bump. And Fu is like, what? So Naruko puts out her hand and says, just punch my fist. And Naruko does, and they go into the mindscape and talk and all that. And right now the fourth Hokage is having a headache trying to get the Tsuchikage, the old grumpy man, to allow Naruko to help their Jinchurikis with controlling their Bijuus. The Tsuchikage keeps denying and denying and denying, and then he says, we can either help you with your Bijuu, or your Bijuu will lose control and demolish your village for us. And the Tsuchikage goes, fine, but she must have a Anbu squad guiding her through the village, and she cannot leave the path that we set for her. And Minato says, I'll see what I can do to have her agree with that, but I do not control her. She is her own free spirit, and so on. A month later, Naruko finally gets back to the Leaf after meeting with the Four Tails and the Five Tails. She's still missing the Six Tails because the Six Tails ran away, and she was meditating and talking with all the Bijuu when Jiraiya runs in and says that the Six Tails has been captured by the Akatsuki. He ran straight to Naruko. And Naruko, hearing this, is thoroughly pissed. And since she's part Senju, she can easily sense Bijuu and can find a way to it. But at this time, the fight between Sasuke and Itachi happens, and Naruko shows up too. And Naruko says, I'm the referee because I don't want anybody to die. And Sasuke says to his brother, I don't need your eyes. All I need is the people that support me. And Itachi seeing this is like, finally. So Itachi takes his eyes out and says to Sasuke, you're going to need these, with his empty eye sockets. And Naruko is freaking out because Itachi just removed his eyes, and Sasuke goes, I can't take those. And he goes, you're going to need them. It's either that or I give it to your Senju girlfriend and have her get the Rinnegan. And Sasuke asks, what do you mean get the Rinnegan? And Itachi goes, just take these eyes and give her your damn eyes. And so Naruto goes, whoa, 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 whoa. What do you mean, give me your eyes? And Itachi goes, I will tell you in a minute. Sasuke, put these on. Put these in. And Itachi starts coughing into his elbow, and he coughs up blood, and Naruto sees this and goes, oh, that's why. Makes sense now. And Itachi goes, please, my last request as your brother. And Sasuke is noticing that the blood on his sleeve is really dark and looks infected. And Itachi says, I don't have past today. I would like to give you a gift before I leave. And Naruto, walking up to Sasuke, saying, if you don't put those in, I'm going to shove them in your own eye. I'm going to shove them in your eye sockets. And Sasuke, being a little terrified of his girlfriend sometimes, says, okay, fine. So Sasuke, he takes out his eyes and winces in pain, and Naruto puts Itachi's eyes in Sasuke's eye sockets, and Sasuke's eyes go to the Mangekyo, and he has the canon pair of Mangekyo eyes, the atom-looking ones. And then Sasuke says, okay, it's your turn, because I feel like you'll need these in a upcoming fight. And she goes, I know. And she says, only my left eye, though. And Sasuke says, okay, I will only put in your left eye. So Naruto pulls out her left eye, and this is a very weird scene. And Sasuke puts his original left eye in her eye socket, and she feels searing pain from it. And when she opens it, it's a Rinnegan, because the DNA from Naruko Senju merged with Sasuke Uchiha, and now she has the Rinnegan. And she can see 5 times better than the Mangekyo Sharingan. And she has complete and utter control of all 6 paths. And since she has 8 out of the 9 Bijuu's chakras, original chakra from the Bijuus, she gets summoned into a mindscape. And the Sage of 6 Paths sees her and sees that that's not her original eye. Mentions that when she gets the last Bijuu's chakra, give your loved one, and he points to her eye, give your loved one, signaling that she needs to give Sasuke something, that eye. And he puts his hand over the eye and instills that once it's transferred, it will transfer the moon crest. And Naruko gets the sun crest. And she gets it on her forehead, the sun crest, not her hand. And the eye gets the moon crest inside the eye, not on the hand. So when Naruko wakes from her daze, she looks at Sasuke, and Sasuke looks worried, and she says, "I'm fine, but I met an old man, and he said that once we start the final battle, I have to give you my eye." And she points to the Rinnegan, and he goes, "I have to take my eye back? Okay, I somewhat understand." And then pain attacks the Leaf Village, and Naruko and Sasuke arrive, doing them a little out of order, I know. And Naruko and Sasuke arrive, and since this Rinnegan was somewhat naturally formed, the toll it takes on the user is not as bad as when it was implanted. So she has complete and utter control over all the paths, and when she sees all the paths, she sees the chakra metal, and she disintegrates the chakra metal, except for the main path of pain, which is the original body, because she can also see the soul of the body and see that it was a once nice, kind person, unlike the other ones, which were evil. So she completely obliterates the other bodies and starts fighting the main body. And she doesn't go crazy. She just fights it and links back to Nagato, and Nagato gets the Tak no Jutsu from Naruko. And Naruko tells Nagato that his eyes are not supposed to be his, and that something bad is going to come if he keeps those eyes. So Nagato says okay, and peacefully passes on while resurrecting all the people he's killed. And Konan, hearing the last few wishes of Nagato's, will rip out his eyes and hand them to Naruko. And she takes them and uses one of the paths of pain, and basically resurrects the person who originally owned them. And the Senju DNA, he brought up Hashirama Senju, and the Uchiha DNA brought up Uchiha Madara's brother, and she's like, okay, 1, don't bring back. 2, I gotta have part of my family back. So she brought back Hashirama Senju, and he's like, where the hell am I, and what is going on? And she goes, I brought you back to life with this, and points to the Rinnegan, and he goes, you have a Rinnegan? And she goes, yeah, I'm a Senju, and I got an eye from an Uchiha, and it made the Rinnegan. And Hashirama goes, makes sense. And then Tsunade is currently picking up the pieces of the village and helping, and then all of a sudden the wood release is used, and Yamato is currently passed out in the medic's tent, and this wood release is on a whole nother level than Yamato's. It's on the same level as the original Hokage of Konoha, and nobody sees his face because he's currently wearing a special mask made out of the chakra metal that only the descendants of the Sage of Six Paths can touch without completely and utterly losing their chakra and dying. So Tsunade sees this and sees who he is, pretty much who he is, and is like, no, 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 no. And Naruko currently has her left eye shut. And Sasuke is still Sasuke and is brooding slightly because of the loss of his family. But he's helping the village rebuild, and when they're done, he walks up to Naruko and asks, is that who I think it is? And she goes, I don't know. Is it? In a playful tone, and he's like, tell me, are you getting punished? And she goes, if you could. And he goes, if I try, you're definitely getting punished. And they start play fighting, and Naruko starts getting turned on. Remember, they're now 18, 20 years old at this point, because they're 15 when they left the academy, and they're 18, 20 now. No, 20 for Naruko and 19 for Sasuke. They are born 2 days apart. Sasuke first, Naruko second. Yeah. So Sasuke is 20 and Naruko is 19. And they're play fighting. Naruko got turned on, and after they report to the Hokage, the fourth Hokage, Naruko shunshwins to her apartment and turns on her sound suppression seals and locks the door and puts seals on it to where it won't break. And Sasuke shunshwins into the apartment, and they have a fun time. A week later, yeah, I'm going to do this. A week later, Naruko feels sick. If anybody knows where this is going. Yeah. Naruko feels sick. And then her eye starts hurting. And she's wondering what this is, and she keeps her left eye shut, and she walks to her mother. She walks to the Senju compound and asks her mother and Lady Tsunade what this feeling is, and she describes the sickness, and Kushina knows exactly what it is because she was just going through it. Well, she felt like she was just going through it with Naruko, and says that's morning sickness. And Tsunade and Kushina have a realization that Naruko is going through morning sickness. And so they tell Naruko to go to the hospital and see if she can find the only Hyuga medic that's currently the leader of the Hyuga clan, Hinata Hyuga. And Naruko says, wait, she's the leader of the Hyuga clan now? And Tsunade says, yeah. And Kushina goes, well, you're gone on your few months trip to see all the Bijuu. She became the leader, and a few things in the villages have changed. So Naruko goes to the tents and meets up with Hinata and says, Hinata, can you check me over? And Hinata does and says, well, first thing, your left eye seems to be acting funny. And Naruko, with her eyes still shut, says, yeah, I understand that. And Hinata says, and your chakra from that eye has been turning a different color. Naruko goes, okay, that's not what I'm here for. And then Hinata goes, "Oh, really?" And then she scans the rest of the body, and once she got to Naruko's stomach, she gasped and said, "Naruko, you are pregnant. Congratulations." Naruko starts tearing up and goes, "Thank you," and goes on her way. They had a little too much fun. And I'm going to end it off here because life calls and life sucks when it calls. But I got to end off here at somewhat of a cliffhanger. Well, somewhat. So, next episode of Naruto Uzumaki. No. Next episode, we're going to get on to the beginning of the war arc and the mastery of the last requirements. This is going to be fun. But talk to you guys next time. Bye.